Well, bring out the zombie takeout.
I think Zombie Takeout's sleeping.
Well, I guess you'll just have to wake him up now, won't you?
Hello and welcome to Zombie Takeout, the B-movie and cult movie show. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get into all of the usual stuff, just a couple of things to go over. First off, would you like to just get all of the Right Said Fred, Midnight Oil, Uncle Fester jokes out of your system right off the top?
I don't know. That depends. Do you have a light bulb to put in your mouth or no?
For those listening to the audio version, particularly if you haven't seen the video version, I remember, and a couple of days ago, I shaved the beard that I'd had since then. So yeah, I've got that look. And yeah, the skin gets kind of interesting just in case you notice anything. Once you've had a beard for a while. Also, a quick apology to anyone who had issues downloading the audio versions of our reviews of Open Mike Eagle or The Zero Theorem. I finally ripped the new Bandmate album in the week before that episode, and I ripped it at 320 kbps 48K, the highest iTunes can do, and I
Of course.
kind of forgot to change my settings back.
Eh.
So that was a really high, those two episodes audio-wise were really high quality, at least the recordings were. Anyway, on to some feedback. This is from Denny Meeks on Twitter in reference to last week's episode, Zero Theorem. He said, "I'm really surprised by your rating on this one. I'm a Gilliam fan, but honestly found this so tedious it was hard to get through when I saw it at the theater. Incoherent and meandering. Waltz was good, but despite Gilliam's style, it was pretty poor execution, in my opinion." Now, I think a lot of it was because we really both, for different reasons, really related to Cohen.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Because I really didn't see it as meandering. And Gilliam, I think you kind of expect meandering out of Gilliam, don't you? Mm-hmm. He's never been a to-the-point kind of guy.
Gilliam is someone who throws a lot of shit at the wall. And, it's a matter of what you notice. It's not even what sticks.
Right.
But I think because, we both connected to Cohen so much, we were just really rooting for him.
Oh, yeah.
And also for me, the message of the film was close to home. So, we were more invested into the movie for that reason. All right. Also on Twitter, Bodo, in reference to this week's episode, said, "I can get caught up with next week's. Oh, never mind. I've seen Pulp Fiction about 100 times, only straight through once. The rest catch it on TV until it's slow. Click Adult Swim. Here I come. Millennials, don't forget us baby boomers, birth short attention spans." Speaking of Adult Swim, thank you for the reminder, Bodo. Completely apropos of nothing, but since I found out yesterday, and we have talked about it, the new seasons of Fully Cooley have release dates. Season 2, subtitled Progression, will be premiering on June 2nd, and Season 3, subtitled Alternative, will be premiering in August on Toonami. I can't wait.
There goes the neighborhood.
Fortunately, I think they're being released weekly, one episode at a time. So,
okay.
And it won't be I don't think they'll be releasing at 11 p.m. Eastern on a Wednesday night, so I'll have time to watch it and it won't get in the way of the show.
All right.
All right, so on to this week's movie, finally. Which is from 1994, Pulp Fiction. As far as the audio podcast goes, this is episode 350, and we always do something special in the 50s.
Yeah, I can't believe we're doing this, honestly. I still can't believe we're doing this. Watching it, I couldn't believe we're doing this.
Actually, this is the second time we've done this. Just to talk about this off the top. Back when we were doing the Tuesday afternoon show, our sketch comedy show, that was our first podcast. We did special things for the two April Fool's Day shows that we did, and this was the second one. Yeah.
This really I was thinking this was an April Fool's episode that we did.
This was the second April Fool's Day show. The first was Macbeth. And the way we did it is we substituted all the characters in the movie for the character voices that we were doing at the time.
Well, right. For those of you not familiar with the Tuesday afternoon show, it was sort of like the Muppet Show, where it's with just the two of us doing
Yeah.
all of the voices for the Muppets.
Yeah, I think we were up to maybe 10 voices each by the end.
Right. So we did the entire movie of Pulp Fiction
Yeah.
with which I did listen to a little bit of tonight
Oh,
before the show.
I forgot to.
It was hard to find online actually, but I did.
What, our version?
Yes.
It's on the website on zombietakeout.com. This is a little plug on zombietakeout.com on the sidebar
I went to that
where
and
it
I
says
wasn't able to
TAS
play
question
it.
mark. Oh, it wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't able to play it off
Oh,
our
I'm sorry.
site.
I will have to look into that. When it says TAS question mark, that leads you to
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of the episodes of the Tuesday afternoon show. I will look into the technical issue.
The one thing I'd forgotten about it that hits you right away was I did the narration stage directions
Oh, okay. I
as the
forgot about that
voice of John McLaughlin,
Oh wow.
which is
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
gonna
what
have to
we
listen to that.
which is I think we may have done also for Macbeth, which was even more insane, honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
because that was what 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
It was
Yeah.
something really nutty
Oh,
that you're
and like a 24-hour edit, and I don't mean 24 hours from start to finish. I mean 24 hours of actual editing.
right. And we did a lot of recording sessions for that one because
Yeah.
we brought in
Yeah,
like a
you must have,
guest,
right.
and
Yeah. Yeah, that was
wow.
insane. Anyway,
Anyway,
on to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by mayonnaise. Don't just don't.
and also brought to you by the $5 Shake. Whether you prefer it Martin and Lewis or Amos and Andy, you'll remember when $5 used to be a lot of money for a milkshake.
Or anything.
Yeah, I know. Like, oh, 1994. What a great year for movies, but oh, how distant in the past it is now.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So we think uh we begin. Well, we have Vincent who's coming back from Europe. He'd been
I just connected Vincent.
what, Vinny?
Vinny Barbarino, yeah.
Yeah. Come on though. How much of this was added in when he realized he had
Oh, yeah,
Travolta,
I'm sure. I'm
like
sure. The whole dance scene, yeah.
the dance scene, and even just the random use of the word disco.
Mhm.
But anyway, we have Vincent who is returning from laying low in Europe for who knows what he had done. Um, he's driving on the way to a new job with Jules, and really, I guess what happened was their boss Marcellus had made some sort of deal with these college kids or whatever. They never explain what it is exactly.
And they're in suits that had to have been left over from Reservoir Dogs.
Yes, definitely. And not even sure why they're dressed like that either, honestly. But they are. Um, yes, they have a briefcase of Marcellus's that they're to retrieve. Uh, you know what? I'm going to do something odd. I'm going to do this in chronological order if I can.
Wait, that's well, it's kind of fitting given well, actually most of the movie is in chronological order.
No, it's not.
Well, the individual stories are told in chronological order, most of them.
No, they're not. Because
Well,
let's see. We have, you know, he roughs him up. He shoots the up the
mhm,
place. Uh, then, and this is of course where what happens towards the end of the movie, but it's still in this actual
right.
action. The one of them, there's someone hiding in the bathroom that comes out guns blazing, but he's just a dumb kid, or there was an act of God.
Hmm,
He missed them with every shot he took,
yeah.
and they of course off him, bring one of the kids along with him, and
They're
well,
there to pick up the briefcase and they run into these three guys in the apartment. I think you kind of skipped over that part. And
Vincent has a bit of a problem just with using his gun, and it creates a bit of a mess. And they need to, of course, get clean. They need to get everything cleaned and taken care of.
clean.
And so they 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 do that. They come back to the boss to tell him everything's cool. They have this odd run-in with a boxer who is about to take a dive. He's on the take from Marsalis, their boss. Um, Vincent and this boxer have a weird staring off at the bar that we're not sure why really that happened in the first place. It's never explained. It of course comes back in the end.
Yeah.
that stare off was very relevant. But why it happened in the first place, we don't know.
Well, but the stare off had to have happened before the incident toward the end of the movie, because what happened toward the end of the movie?
Oh, you know what? I skipped before that. They of course go and have breakfast before that.
I never connected in the meeting with Marcellus is after.
Yes, because they have the clothes.
Right.
The goofy clothes. When you're first watching it, you're like, why are they dressed like that? What happened to their clothes? Kind of thing. And it never gets explained. But yes, they have breakfast at a restaurant. The restaurant gets held up, but luckily Jules is able to kind of talk. Well, actually, Jules, who is deciding he's getting out of this fucking business. So he pretty much just says, take the money, but you got to leave the briefcase. And, if that's how the movie went, that would be the end of Samuel L. Jackson's movie, which is why it is not told chronologically. Vincent, of course, also has agreed to take out Marsalis's wife.
And they talk about that as they're on the way to the hit.
Yes.
At the beginning of the movie. And
that's part of the conversation in the hit.
And the date happens in the next vignette, which is why I meant that it happens chronologically.
Just about. So
for the most part.
He takes Marsalis's wife out. As good as she looks, though, I think as time would go on, I would have probably just ran out of the building, because, I mean, rumor has it the last guy that did this got a little too familiar. Some say it was a foot massage. Some say they don't know what happened. But whatever it is, Tony Rocky Horror got burned out of a window.
Love that reference.
I always wonder if they were ever going to do a prequel, with Tony Rocky Horror and stuff, and explain what happened there. But so instead, he takes her to this restaurant. Of course, he's shot up. He's gotten some American heroin to shoot up with, but he didn't shoot all of it up. He just, leaves some of it in his coat. They're at this restaurant. He's a gentleman, though. He dances with her, and they win this prize, and they come back.
He doesn't want to be killed.
He's being a gentleman. He gives her his coat to wear, which is, of course, where the heroin comes back into play.
Of course.
Because she finds it in the spare pocket and just decides what his is hers. And she snorted it, though, which was
I think she thought it was cocaine, because she did cocaine earlier in the movie. In the bathroom at the restaurant, she did a line.
Right. So that was the problem. And he has to take her back to his dealer and hopefully get her to not die. So I'm trying to think what happens next chronologically.
The fighter.
Oh, then the boxing match actually occurs, and he does not take his dive. His ass does not go down to the fifth, and he has to run. But there's just one problem.
Well, not only did he not take the dive that he had agreed to, but he accidentally killed the other boxer.
Well, yeah, that happens in boxing. But yeah, worse so, he did not take the dive. And the second MacGuffin, of course, is this watch that was handed down from generation to generation
in a very interesting way,
in the back seat of Volkswagen,
in an uncomfortable place.
Yes, Acura, the name, make and model of the car. Damn it!
The backseat of a Volkswagen Bug, if I recall correctly.
Back seat of the Volkswagen Bug, you got it. It was hidden there. And of course, you know, the great dynamic between Butch and his girlfriend, uh, of him just completely going apeshit insane, making her upset, and me, oh baby, I'm sorry,
A
no, no.
terrifying turn on his part because he's ripping the place apart and
Oh
then goes to
yes,
dead calm.
right, right, right. Just like, oh, did I go too far? Oh yeah, but I mean, of course, he's raging bull,
And surprisingly, there's only 10 years between Bruce Willis and Maria de Medeiros, who played his girlfriend, Fabiana.
He, I forgot how young Bruce Willis was at one point.
Because he looks like twice her age.
Yeah, but yeah, he looks so young for what we're used to seeing now.
Oh, yeah.
So he has to go back to his apartment to get his watch that she did not pack, and of course everybody was waiting there for him. Well,
No, just Vincent.
he caught them on a break. Since Jules is wandering the earth like King from Kung Fu, uh, the boss was there, but was picking up coffee and donuts. Vincent decided that was a good time to go to the bathroom. Does he
And he
take his
left,
gun with him?
of course, he left his
No.
gun on the counter
He leaves it on the
outside the
counter.
bathroom.
And that's when you see the stare off come back again. Only problem was Butch had fixed himself some Pop Tarts. And the key to the movie is when you have a gun, when you're holding a gun and you have your finger on the trigger, you got to be really steady.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want any distractions, any jostling, any surprises.
Right. So he takes off, runs into one of my favorite scenes in all of cinematic history, I think. The scene where he's pulled up to the stoplight, the red light. Marcellus is walking with the thing of coffee and donuts, and you get this look between the two of them, I know you kind of subtext, but in Ving Rhames' language, it's
Motherfucker.
To which Butch responds
By stepping on the car.
Running him over. The two have this crazy shootout fight chase in the middle of town, and just as one is about to finish the other one off, it gets weird.
Yeah.
They
you have what is probably the most famous reference from the movie that we used in the intro.
It's well, I think of course the Royale with cheese.
Oh yeah, that's one of them too. As well.
But yeah, it just if you thought everything else I was describing up until now, if you have not seen this movie was weird, this gets weird. um, and really, of course, if it was going chronologically, you would have one of them. The last line would be "Zed is dead," and they would drive off into the.
Mm-hmm.
And hilarity ensues.
And actually, that engine noise opens the movie. The motorcycle with Butch and Fabiana.
Oh, you're right.
It's when you see the titles, you hear that engine just as it fades into the first scene.
Okay.
And I love the structure of this movie, how it's got these sort of nested stories that kind of move through time. Reminds me of Cloud Atlas, which came out about 10 years after. So, and it's Cloud Atlas is my absolute favorite book. I'm obsessed with it. It was 10 years after. So I'm wondering if David Mitchell, the author of Cloud Atlas, borrowed some inspiration from Pulp Fiction.
Well, I was watching it critically for the first time. I mean, because I've seen it. You know what? I've seen it start to finish maybe a handful of times. It's been probably since we did that TAS episode like 10 years ago. Was it 10? No, it was 12, wasn't it?
Yeah, about 12 years ago. Because it was just over 10 because it was after you moved.
It was towards the end. That was like the final.
It was 2007 because it was the year we did it. Over whatever VoIP we were using at the time. It was after you moved to Chicago.
11 years ago. Wow. Yeah. Then it was like the second to the last episode we did.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was probably the last time I've probably seen it one more time since then. start to finish. But I've seen pieces of it here and there all the time.
Yeah, I've seen it in total once on TV, so probably not much more recent than you have.
But watching it critically for the first time, I'm trying to think, did it really need to be told, you know, non-chronologically like this?
I don't think it
In a
needed
non-linear
it, but
fashion.
it gave it a hook.
But so I figured the way to test it would be to give the plot summary in
Chronologically.
chronological
Yeah.
order. And I think yes, because you get Samuel L.
Well, yeah,
Jackson
that's the only difference is
spread out through it.
right. You don't get him at the end. He kind of disappears midway through.
And really that speech at the end that he gives is really, if you want to find a message to the
Yeah,
movie,
sure.
that's it. That we're not just randomly floating around, there's meaning to it, and if
Yeah.
you don't have it, you need to go out and find it.
Mhm. And speaking of influence, this owes a huge debt to Slackers.
Yeah.
The Linklater film, where that changes stories as people cross paths. That this, which of course was hugely influential to a lot of things. The movie opens with the definitions of pulp, and pulp
I
novels
lost you
are,
there.
are the movie opens. Well, yeah, I'm forgetting we don't have edits on the show. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess what I was saying is the movie opens with the different definitions of pulp, and it's interesting. I found it interesting that the pulp novels are basically literary B movies.
Oh, sure.
I had never thought about that before.
Definitely. I mean, it's really one of the reasons we started doing this, because it's an art form like any other.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just levels of literature, and there's levels of movie scripts.
Right. And I loved the cell phone bank robbery strategy that what's his name in Tim Roth's character. I can't think of his.
Oh.
I have it in my notes. Oh, Pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
Tim Roth's character is talking about these different bank robbery strategies, and he talks about one where someone was sent into the bank with a cell phone and had said, if the person on the other end of the phone has my daughter, and they hand the phone to the teller, and they said, give him all the money or the kid dies, and it worked.
All right, so they just give him the money. Why wouldn't you just keep doing that still, though?
Well, I guess you don't want to test it, but of course, who knows if it's legit? It's a beautiful strategy, given the conceit that they talk about, where banks are so insured that they don't even bother trying to stop robberies; they just let them continue.
But you gotta love him building the case, and the genius of knocking over a diner in the beginning,
Mhm.
and then at the end you see, well, you never know who's going to be a customer in the
Yeah,
diner.
exactly.
And it's a great idea to knock over a diner,
Especially,
unless there's two hitmen in
yeah,
the
and
diner.
one of whom who wants to become a hero.
Yeah.
But the cuts for the different sections were perfect because Pumpkin and Honey Bunny just get up, with the guns and say, everybody, hands on the table, whatever they said when they were about to do the robbery, and then it cuts to Jules and Vincent.
Yeah, it's him just saying, "Everybody be cool. This is a robbery," and Amanda Plummer, I'm gonna execute every last
Yeah, yeah,
motherfucker, Who, goddamn Amanda Plummer, I wish her role was bigger in
yeah.
this.
And then it cuts to Jules and Vincent, which it was almost foreshadowing.
Right, right. You had no idea that the two were actually gonna come together in
Mhm.
the end.
And I love how random Jules and Vincent's conversations are.
Right, and it's just like he's picking up where he left off with Reservoir
Yeah,
Dogs,
yeah.
obviously, where they're talking about Madonna and stuff.
Mhm.
Like very random, these
And
gangsters talking about that shit.
and a conversation in reality would be that random.
Well, true, and of course you would ask him how Europe was, and
Mhm.
I mean, it is all from a natural place. None of that stuff was really that. It wasn't extraneous. It was,
No.
you could see all of that stuff happening. He's back in the States for the first time, and he's taking out the big man's wife.
Right. Although the foot massage conversation does get a bit philosophical. Like, what constitutes a massage? Is it a sexual thing or not? You know,
My feet are tired.
would you give a foot massage to a man? That was a great checkmate.
Oh yeah, fuck you.
And I loved at the end, let's get into character.
All right.
Right before they go into the apartment with the three guys.
So the good cop, bad cop. Let's get into character. Uh,
I have to say, I have mixed feelings about the briefcase.
well, and think about those two scenes together too. That they have Jules and Vincent, though. I mean, you have the Royale with cheese scene, and then the Ezekiel scene,
Right.
back to back.
Bit of trivia since you mentioned the quote. The passage from the Bible that Jules had memorized was mostly made up by Tarantino and
Of
Jackson.
course, yeah. There's
Part
no
about the righteous man and the tyranny of evil men was not real.
right.
However, the second half, and I will strike down with upon the yada yada yada, is from Ezekiel.
I mean, yeah. Of course, I looked up the passage and everything. It just no, does not exist.
Now the briefcase thing, I like that it's left. I kind of like that it's left to your imagination, but I still want to know. It's that sci-fi geek in me that wants all of the phlebotinum and all of the detail. But I appreciate that it was this black box effectively.
It's great though. I mean, it's just so obvious. This is a MacGuffin. You don't need to know what the fuck
Yeah,
it is.
exactly.
But they're gonna tantalize you with it so much, especially in the end where Amanda Plummer's like, "Come on, what is it?" And you really expect him to say it, but he doesn't.
Right.
Is that what I think it is? Son of a bitch.
And speaking of things that set up mystery, the bandage on the back of Marcellus's head.
Yeah.
Ving Rhames had just cut himself shaving that day. That's all there was to it. Put a bandage on it. And Tarantino decided to make it a thing to like, get you to wonder why it's there. There's a theory that the glowing thing in the briefcase is Marcellus's soul.
Which doesn't make any fucking sense.
No. It was extracted. It's in a lot of mythology, that's how the soul is extracted through the back of the head. So it explains the Band-Aid. It doesn't fit the movie beyond that. Obviously Tarantino has never said anything because he wants it to be a mystery.
Well, right, and if it was a soul, would Pumpkin really be? Is that what I think it is? Would he be like, is that a soul? I mean,
and I don't think if there was a soul, that Marcellus's would be beautiful.
Exactly.
Now here, then we get to the date between Marcellus's wife and Vincent, and there's one bit at the beginning of it that is one of my very few criticisms of the movie. She says something about him being a square, and she does this thing, with their fingers,
Yes.
And they actually show the dotted line as she's doing the square.
Is your problem that it's a rectangle?
Well, no, actually, I didn't think about that. It just kind of breaks the reality of the movie a little bit.
Well,
it's a very straightforward movie beyond that. I mean, structure aside.
Not exactly. I mean, the very stylized version of him driving before that, which you can kind of explain because he's, kind of he just shot up
and he's driving. True. Yeah.
But there's a very surreal quality to all of that.
But yeah, he had just shot up, so it made sense.
So you could justify that, but really, when Butch is taking the cab ride after the fight, I'm not sure why the scene was like that.
True, it does play around with reality a little bit, but this dotted rectangle on the screen just was a little too much for me.
The cab ride that Butch takes, it's a fucking black and white film behind them. Is the background?
Is it?
It looks like
that. Second time I saw it, so I didn't catch that. Wow, I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
It's a black and white film, for fuck's sake. There was no color in any of the background behind them.
Wow. Okay.
They're using green screen. Not even. I mean, he's not hiding that it's a green screen in any of his driving scenes. But yeah, in the one with Butch, I swear it's a black and white film they're using behind him.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
like some 1940s film of LA or whatever behind them.
Mhm.
It just like doesn't make any sense. So yeah, he's playing with everything in this. You
Yeah.
know, he's playing with chronology, he's
Mhm.
playing with reality, and that's why people are willing to say that that was Marsalis's soul
Right, right.
in the briefcase, even
Mhm.
though I, no one would like recognize what a soul
Of
looks like.
course. And so on the date, she insists on going to this place called Rabbit Slim's, which is a 50s diner, including a waiter dressed as Buddy Holly and all of this stuff. And
Did
there's
you recognize who was Buddy
yeah,
Holly?
Steve Buscemi.
Yes.
And there's this great tracking shot as Vincent is trying to find her in the restaurant and pretty much walking around the entire thing. It really sold how lost he was at the place.
Yeah.
And I've never appreciated Link Ray's rumble before seeing it in this movie.
Really?
They're talking they have this kind of extended lull going on, and it's in the background. And I never really liked the song until this movie.
It's always been such a striking piece. I mean, yeah, I probably can remember maybe Michael Mann used it
Mhm.
when he did like Crime Story or something like that. But yeah, it's always had like this, kind of
I
like almost like boleros,
yeah,
that
it's very simple. And I think
Ravel
I'm
only on
thinking
the
about
guitar.
since I'm a guitar player, I'm thinking playing it. So it's just these three chords and then wait, and then these three
Yeah.
chords and then wait.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of lead.
But that's the drama of it,
Yeah.
It's
But I was thinking of it as playing it, which is a little boring. But in this case, I really got a sense of the mood of it.
yes, yes, exactly.
And also, I remember when you used to be able to smoke indoors.
Yeah, that was the other part of this. I'm like, wow, we were able to smoke inside in 1994. I kept trying to remember that.
I quit almost 5 years ago, and so I remember it being able to do it 10 years ago.
I
Almost.
think I remember Indiana, you're able to do it like within the last 10 years
Yeah.
at least.
Although they were smoking while eating. I
It's
did that,
diner.
yeah, but I mean while they were eating, not after. I did that once, only once. Bad idea. Also loved the use of Chuck Berry's "Never Can Tell" during the twist.
It's so iconic,
Mhm.
If it's a despite being as old as it was
Yeah.
at the time that this came out, it's forever tied with this movie,
Right.
really.
And it's Chuck Berry. His music is just timeless to begin with. And
Yeah,
and Buddy
it is.
Holly. I'm a huge fan of both. Showing them dancing with no dialogue was an interesting choice.
Right. And of
Because you would
course,
expect something to be intercut where the two of them kind of whispering to each other or whatever. They're just dancing.
yeah, I mean, you can judge for yourself how good of dancers they were.
Well, yeah. But I mean, they weren't professionals, and the characters weren't professionals. They were a
That's true.
hitman and a mobster's wife. So, if the dancing was a little off, it fit. And just one other comment about this whole opening. It's interesting that Tarantino chose two hitmen to essentially be his voice in the movie because they're his voice. They're the director's commentary, effectively.
They're, they're. I guess you could say they're Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah,
They're,
definitely. Yeah, good
you
call.
know,
Um,
the
and showing Mia's face when he finds her body was great
yeah.
because she overdoses and she falls, and you just see her face, and they stay on her face when he finds her.
Oh yeah. I'm not exactly sure about the whole physiology of what would happen if
Well,
you
no,
did that
no.
and how long you'd actually have before
Yeah,
your heart would ease up.
I'm not interested in questioning that. It's the movie is stylized enough. I don't need to nitpick the reality of it too much. Speaking of realistic, though, when Vincent literally drove into Lance's house, like he hit the side of the house,
Yes.
he didn't go through the wall. He just hit the house, which was
Right.
nice because I'm so sick of literally driving through a house.
Right. I mean, he was trying to stop too. He just came into the driveway so hard that
Well,
he
under the front lawn.
right. He couldn't stop it in
Yeah.
time. It just kind of hit
Mhm.
the house and not drive through it.
Now, did Christopher Walken's monologue need to be so long?
Yes. I
I
wish it
mean,
was. I could have gone for another half hour, but I think.
it leads to an interesting place, but he just kind of went on too long. And I think the watch up the ass bit was just a little too comedic for that point in the movie because they had just had the overdosing, and
Don't you dare change that, though. I wouldn't trade that in for anything.
in isolation, it's brilliant. But I just think it's kind of it kind of plays it interrupts the mood a little bit.
Uh, I mean, the fact that he's playing it straight and it's Christopher Walken talking about this watch
Mhm.
was up my
Yeah.
ass. Just say with a straight fucking
Well,
face.
because Walken says everything with a straight face. That's what he does. That's his genius. He can say the most absurd, outlandish things with a dead straight face.
I mean, there are just so many people that he worked into this movie. It's almost like watching a mad world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And how he got all these people in for like this crazy little budget is just mind-boggling.
Right, right. Now, I think the movie might be a little too long.
It is long, yes.
It's 2.5 hours. I mean, it covers a lot of ground, but I think maybe it could have been shorter.
I mean, really, the only part that doesn't move anything along is the date.
Yeah, true, true.
Like if if there was a part to take out, it was the date but you can't let that go. It
Well,
was
you
just
can't
too
in
iconic.
hindsight. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't in hindsight because it's iconic, but you're right, it really doesn't accomplish anything
right.
in the movie. That's it. I never thought about that. Oh, going back to the watch real quick. Its backstory is kind of ironic given what it leads to.
Oh yeah, of course. And in fact, it's kind of the point. I think the other thing with the date is kind of a foreshadowing in a
Mhm.
way,
Yeah.
because the last person that shook her hand that we know
Right,
got
ended
tossed
up
out the
thrown out of
window,
the window,
and then
right.
he winds up shaking her hand at the end, and
Right,
you're just
right.
kind of like, yeah, she's cursed.
Although it wasn't Marcellus that got to him.
Well, right, it wasn't Marcellus, right?
And it's really shocking to see Vincent get shot when there's an hour left to the movie.
Right.
Because you kind of figure he's a main character. He's going to
Oh
be there at the
yeah,
end. And
which
even having seen it a long time ago, knowing he does make it to the end of the movie, or he is in the end of the movie, I was like, wait, how does? Oh, right,
it's the
non-chronological.
beauty of changing the chronology.
Yeah.
Uh,
Although I'm not sure how I feel about the meaning of GIMP changing. Because Bring Out the GIMP is, of course, one of the iconic bits of the movie. And it's this guy in this leather BDSM suit.
yeah.
GIMP was originally a slur for disabled people, and for those who might be new who have been with us, I have to announce this every so often. I'm in a wheelchair. I really don't know how I feel about that. I kind of have mixed feelings. I do have to admit I was busy drooling over some of the '80s guitars in the pawn shop. I saw guitars that looked just like that in Guitar Player back in the day. And I loved the weapon selection. Speaking of the pawn shop, when he goes to save Marcellus, he
Oh
drops a
yeah.
bat and then a
Oh,
chainsaw.
that whole sequence is just. I mean, after the confusion and just the then the whole "I'll do it, but I'll hate myself in the morning" look he gives
Right,
when he's
right,
on the
right,
way
yeah.
out, but like, okay, I'll do it.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then upgrading.
Yeah, he should have stuck with the chainsaw or at least the bass. There's a bass guitar. Those things are fucking heavy. That's
If
probably
you
about eight
have a
pounds.
chance to use a samurai sword in a fight, though,
Maybe it's because I have a sword collection. It's not that big of a deal to me. Um,
yeah, but
but
you don't have the chance to use the
fair
sword.
point. Fair point. But as someone who owns one and has practiced with it quite a bit, if there's a baseball bat or a bass guitar there, something big and heavy, or better yet, a chainsaw, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm not going to trust myself with a katana if I got to throw down.
Of course, the problem is you don't know how sharp the katana
Well,
is.
that too.
What if he came
Uh,
in and it wasn't? It was just ceremonial or whatever, and
right,
not really
exactly.
you know
Yeah, if it was
battle
an
ready.
unsharpenable blade, you're screwed. If that chainsaw starts, that's what I'm taking with me.
You just need to find a boomstick to go with it.
Yeah. And if the chainsaw doesn't start, I'm grabbing the base.
Yeah.
The katana was just not a smart choice. And where does a boxer learn to use a katana like that? I said I'm not complaining about the reality of it, but yeah, he was a boxer who was like pulling off these samurai moves.
Now, is that the same sword from Kill Bill?
I don't know. That would be an interesting thing to
Because
check.
how great would it be if she winds up like pawning the sword off at the end, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's that
yeah.
shop.
Right, right. Now we get to, we return to the Jules and Vincent when after, Butch and Fabiana drive off and give us the motorcycle sound from the beginning.
Yeah.
And Marvin's shooting shouldn't have been funny, but it was.
Oh,
Phil Lamar's character. Great to see Phil Lamar in the movie. Been a
oh
fan
yeah,
since
and TV.
TV. He's done a lot of voice work too, in animation. But yeah, I had to laugh when that happened because it
Well, of
takes you by
course.
such surprise.
And it's just so stupid. And one of the things you realize from this scene alone is that Vincent is a real fucking head case.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, he gets surly with the wolf. He
And when he gets so surly, as you put it, with the wolf, I have to admit, I was kind of glad for what happened to him.
right, he gets surly with Jimmy. I mean, they show up to the guy's house with
Yeah, yeah.
dead end storage, I guess you could say. Um,
A
he
real quick thing about one real quick thing to interject real fast. Since I just saw my notes, I forgot to mention Zed and Maynard are brothers.
yes.
It's in the screenplay. They don't mention it in the movie. Kind of brings a whole new dimension to that scene. Um, anyway, back to Vincent and the wolf. Love the wolf. He's probably my favorite character in the movie. I just love how efficient and professional he is.
Apparently, it's the same character Harvey Keitel played in the movie Point of No Return the year before.
Oh, okay.
Like he was known as like the cleaner or whatever, but he just decided to like keep that character and put
Interesting.
him in this. But right, he gives shit to Willie. He gives shit, or not Willie, Jimmy.
Mhm.
He gives shit to the wolf. Um, he doesn't even really appreciate that they're still alive after the kid rang off all these shots at them,
Right, right.
and he's just
Well, I'm kind of have his back on that one, because Jules is saying it's a miracle. It was a lucky break,
true.
plain and simple, and that's all Vincent was saying. They got lucky. Got to take his back on. Got to have his back on that one. But after bouncing off to the wolf, who was just there to save them and was an absolute professional about it, I was kind of glad Vincent got shot.
Pretty pleased with the fucking trigger on top. The car. but but no, I mean, if someone charges at you and rings out a bunch of shots and manages to miss every single one of them, that is a life evaluating moment.
Yeah, yeah, it is a life evaluating moment,
Whether
and
you think it's a miracle or if you just got
yeah.
lucky.
So it's something you should be very happy about, and
Just be like, I'm gonna take the big guy's daughter out on a date tonight.
yeah, true, true. Speaking of daughters,
Daughter. It was his wife. I mean, did I say daughter?
well, you conveniently gave me a segue.
Okay.
Because I completely forgot you and Leah Sweeney was in this movie.
I didn't even recognize Rosanna Arquette
Yeah, with all the
until
piercings.
this is like the first time I realized, wait a minute, that's Rosanna Arquette. I mean, she's only in it for like, what, 30
Yeah.
seconds at most?
And same thing with Julia Sweeney. Was this before SNL? Because she looked very young.
No,
She
because
was on SNL at
she
this
was
point.
like, she was Pat and stuff. She was on
Oh
with
yeah.
she was on with like Phil Hartman and
Oh right,
stuff,
that was
wasn't
late
she?
'80s. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So
think it's
this might have been right
post
after.
SNL.
Because she looked really young in it.
There's also a very young Kathy Griffin in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
as well.
She picks up Marcellus after runs into him, as you put it.
Yeah. Um, and Rosanna Arquette though, you only hear like she's off camera more than she's on. You
Right.
yelling
Yeah. Right.
at what was Tim Roth's character's name?
But it was Eric
Eric
Stoltz.
Stoltz, Lance.
Lance. Okay.
Who, yeah, as you're seeing him as the drug dealer, you're like, that was originally supposed to be Marty McFly, of course.
What, that was going to be Michael J. Fox?
They originally casted him, man,
I didn't know that. Oh,
and it just
wow.
didn't work out.
Oh,
But then
that
seeing
would have
him
been
as this drug
amazing.
dealer,
That would have been amazing. So they get the car cleaned up and they go to the diner. And this really could have been Jules' origin story, for
I
the
think,
hero that he's trying to become.
yeah. And I mean, does that bring us to sequels and remakes?
Well, yeah, is there really much else to talk about with the
No.
diner scene? They stopped the robbery. Um, oh, there was a deleted scene in which Jules kind of has as this fantasy about what he could have done when Pumpkin is on top of him. He shoots him, spins around, shoots Bunny, and kind of stops it, and then he wakes up.
It doesn't make any sense for
No,
Jules to have a fantasy because
no,
he's
no.
fucking done it.
Right,
And
right, yeah.
I mean, him
Not as
taking
not
you
so much
out.
fantasy, just a calculation of I'll shoot him, then I'll shoot her, and then someone else gets shot when she falls, and I think it's better to just show him calmly talking them down and kind of trying to move on to a new life.
Yeah. And then, of course, one of Travolta's best lines, you give him that money, I'm going to shoot him out of principle.
One last bit of trivia. The screenplay was written in 92 and 93 and incorporated some scenes originally written by Roger Avary for True Romance.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there was a connection. Between this, True Romance, and Natural Born Killers is this sort of weird interplay.
Well, I mean, Travolta, Vincent Vega was supposed to be, um, what's his name from Reservoir Dogs?
Michael Madsen, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And from what I understand, Michael Madsen got cast in Wyatt Earp.
Okay.
So he saw the big Kevin Costner movie and The Paycheck
Right.
and
Of
said,
course. Of
sorry.
course. And I mean, a logical choice for him. And I think it wouldn't have been nearly as interesting with Madsen as Vincent.
I think you're right. I think this is Travolta's best role, hands down.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And just the chemistry between him and Samuel L. Jackson. I
Yeah.
don't know if that would have been there with Madsen.
Yeah. I mean, Reservoir Dogs is on its own a classic.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah, the two of them together in this.
Right.
That's why the Royale with cheese scene is just so
right, right, right.
iconic.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that
then
is just so random.
and that Mad TV, of course, spoofed this movie with Bill Maher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I don't think I appreciated at the time because I hadn't seen the movie. On to sequels and remakes. You want a prequel with what was his name?
You could do so much from this, of course. Like because there were so many characters in it.
Right.
But yeah, you could have like Tony Rocky
Tony
Horror.
Rocky Horror. How could I forget that?
You'd figure out why they called him Tony Rocky Horror, of course.
I would love to see a sequel following Jules walking the earth as a hero.
Of course. They could have made a series off that,
Oh,
I mean, just, I mean, how many shows have they done with the guy just wandering aimlessly from town to town since
right.
or whatever? Yeah, it could have just been The Fugitive with Samuel L. Jackson, Jules Winfield.
right. Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have been The Fugitive because he's not really wanted at this point.
You'd have somebody chasing after him just to make the plot of the show.
He gets away from her. I mean, it's one of the probably now that I'm thinking about it, it hadn't occurred to me, but it's one of the most unrealistic things in the movie. He leaves the life clean.
Oh yeah, and
presumably.
I guess Marcellus seems like he's ready to forgive pretty easily, actually, doesn't he?
Well, he forgives Butch because he saves his ass, literally.
Yeah. That he does.
I would love to see what he would have done to Zed.
Oh, no.
Whoever did Saw, I don't know his name offhand, but I would love to see him direct that scene.
Eli Roth.
Yeah.
But yes.
Because he mentions pliers. He shot
pliers
him
and blowtorch
with a shotgun.
Yikes. SVTV, you, and to be his short, miserable life.
Yeah. Underbrains.
Is there a mystery to
I
this?
mean, well, for me, perhaps not for you, but it's not really. I mean, I had a couple of minor criticisms that could have been shorter. I do think Walken's monologue went on too long and was a little too comedic for that spot in the movie, and I do have a little issue with the rectangle, but it's Tarantino's masterpiece. I mean, he's had missteps since then, but he really did nail it this time. I got to go 5.
Yeah, it's our 350th episode, so we took a week off. We've had a lot of really good movies, but I have a
Yeah.
feeling that's about to change, isn't it?
Well, we'll see. This is our second perfect score of the year. I think
Second
we're starting
consecutively
off
for
good. Yeah,
me.
consecutive. Well, it's a perfect score, so it's both of us. It's our second double 5 consecutive too. Before we get to that, what have we learned?
Uh, what have I learned? What haven't I learned? My feet, I have too many notes is what I learned.
Oh, okay, okay. And I learned a good use for a cell phone. All right, so that's it for Pulp Fiction. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. Down in the description, you'll find the trailer for Pulp Fiction, as well as a link to its IMDb page, a link to the trailer, not the embedded trailer, and all of our links, social networks, links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes to the audio version, our voicemail, our email address, all of that good stuff. And until next time, we'll be reviewing Americathon. I have hope for this one. You said it was the most 70s thing you've ever seen when you saw the trailer.
Well, I think our viewers need to be treated to us getting the claws out. So,
Well, yeah. We've got some coming up in a few weeks that I think I think Americathon will be good. We've got Perfume after that with a guest. Shortly after that, I think. Oh, we've got the Stone trilogy after that.
oh,
After Perfume.
okay,
I think that's going to be the treat for the viewers,
all right.
particularly the third one, The Hand. I have no idea what that's gonna be,
It will be a
and
treat for us, though.
well, I think that's kind of mutually exclusive, a treat for them and a treat for us. We've got a movie called Mythica: The Dark Spore, that stars Kevin Sorbo. It's a sword and sorcery thing,
Oh, jeez, fuck.
and then we've got a Julie Strain movie called Sorceress after that. You want
Okay,
to see the claws? That's when you're going to see the claws.
all right.
Until then, of course, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there
There
you
you
are.
are.